give birth and get a second passport. Yes, it is possible, and in today's video, I'm going to be diving into some of the realities of birth tourism, as well as some of the most favorited countries and the countries that I personally get asked about the most when it comes to couples giving birth in another country to obtain residency and or citizenship, along with some of the things to be careful of and to take into consideration before you hop over to another country to give birth. Welcome to the channel. I'm Nicole of Work, Wealth, and Travel, and myself and my team help you to obtain global citizen diversification. I myself am a global citizen and have been for almost a decade now when I left my home country and went to countries that favored me most. That can be in terms of tax optimization, in terms of obtaining multiple residencies, citizenships, and so much more. Birth tourism is just one of these aspects, and we are going to dive into all things birth tourism today. Let's first start with the definition of birth tourism. What is birth tourism and why may it be important in your global citizen journey? Birth tourism simply refers to going to another country to give birth to your child. And there are various countries, there are about 30 to 35 different countries around the globe that will offer your child citizenship simply for being born in that country. You nor your partner need to be nationals or residents of that country. Simply because of the fact that the child was born in that country, they are entitled to a citizenship. There are typically two ways to obtain citizenship. It is through blood or through soil. So birth tourism is through soil. So the benefits are not only to the child, but also to the parents. Now, typically parents are not entitled to citizenship for having a child in that country. That is only reserved for the child that is born in that country. However, there are some countries that will offer the parents residency or the potential to obtain residency in a few years' time after living in that country, and then potentially apply for citizenship down the line. So what are some of these countries where birth tourism is offered? Now, birth tourism is offered in almost every single country in Latin America, as well as in some Western countries and in Europe as well. These are the countries that are going to be most prevalent when we're talking about birth tourism. So some examples of these countries are Mexico, Canada, the USA. You want to be careful with the USA, and I'm going to chat about that one in a minute. Paraguay, Uruguay, Panama, Brazil, Puerto Rico, Chile with some exceptions, Portugal, Peru, Pakistan, various of the Caribbean island countries, among others. There are truly many different countries around the globe that can afford your child the opportunity of a second or third or fourth passport simply for being born in that country. So let's talk about some of these biggest countries and some of the options that are probably in your mind or that I've personally seen that are popular for birth tourism and some of the stipulations around those. So first we have Mexico. Now, Mexico may be a good option for birth tourism. However, it's important to note that as of 2024, they do have a very straightforward and not too complex process for temporary or permanent residence. And that can lead to citizenship if you spend time on the ground in Mexico. So if this is a route that you are thinking of going, birth tourism in another country may be more beneficial, as you may be able to obtain your Mexican residence and or citizenship via another route. So Mexico, along with some of the other countries, specifically in Latin America, do have a military duty. I'm putting this in very loose air quotes, but they do technically have a military duty that needs to be fulfilled when the child turns 18. So in Mexico specifically, I do have some friends and colleagues who have gone through this process themselves when they turned of age at the age of 18. So as it stands right now, in Mexico, it's not an active military duty, it's more of a social service program. They will have to do social service and do different activities such as that as deemed by the government for a set amount of time, and this is usually for 1 year. But it's good to know that these are legally the requirements of any citizen in that country when they turn of age. So Canada is another country that I wanted to speak on the specifics of Canada as well. Now, Canada and America are becoming increasingly popular. However, there are some stipulations you want to think about, same as Mexico, when you're considering Canada or America. So in Canada, of course, the child will get citizenship when they are born in Canada, but the parents will not get immediate residency. Now, most of these countries with a birth tourism program at option, they will offer the parents to obtain residency, if not immediately for having a child in that country, if the parents stay and live in that country, get acclimatized to that culture, and really get integrated into that culture for 1, 2, 3 years, depending on the country, they can become residents and or citizens. However, in Canada, there is no option for the parents to become residents, let alone citizens. They cannot become residents in Canada. The only way the parents could become residents in Canada is once their child turns 18 years old. If the child is living in Canada, the child can then sponsor the parents to come over to Canada because that child would be a resident and a citizen. So Canada can be a tricky one, although it is a great passport to hold, definitely a tier 1 passport as it stands right now. And their taxation system is not the same as America's, so you're getting a very similar passport with a much more beneficial taxation system. It may be less beneficial for the parents. So next up, we have the US. This is definitely one that needs to be talked about. There are repercussions if you are having a child born in the US. Not only if you're having a child that's born in the US, but if you are born in the US or if you have a green card, you are also going to be subject to worldwide taxation. So by having your child in the United States of America, not only may the healthcare bill, if you don't have insurance in America or Canada for that matter, be extremely high. That's also something important to consider, is how much it's going to cost you. But your child will be in the American tax system for simply being born there. If yourself and your partner are neither Americans, it does not matter in this case because your child was born there. They will be subject to US taxation. They will, of course, also be able to hold the American passport and use that as a powerful travel document. But in holding that passport, in being born in America and being a citizen, they will be subject to worldwide taxation on their income. So that is a really important caveat. When you're gifting your child the gift of a second, third, fourth passport, which is one of the best gifts that you can give your global citizen child, you also want to think of some of those implications and repercussions, such as, are they going to potentially have to do active military duty or even social service for a year of their life? Are they going to be subject to global taxation? And what is that going to look like? How could that potentially hinder their entrepreneurship journey and wealth building in the future? Since a lot of these birth tourism countries are in Latin America, there is a topic that needs to be addressed in this, and that is bureaucracy. Now, many of these countries in Latin America, while they do have really exceptional residency programs that can sometimes lead into citizenship and, of course, have great birth tourism options, the bureaucracy in these countries is oftentimes very slow. So this is something important to take note of. And a perfect example of this is in Chile. So in Chile, while it typically takes about 3 years of having your permanent residence to then lead to citizenship, and you will get your PR once you have had your child in Chile and you are actively living there. However, I have personally heard that this 3 years can easily be extended to 4 or 5 years simply due to bureaucracy. The file will be sitting on somebody's desk and it will not move for months or potentially years. So this is something important to note, and this is why it's good to work with an expert on the ground. Because in this space, not only with birth tourism, but also in gaining residencies and citizenships around the globe, in many of these countries that are less developed, the bureaucracy and the speed of these tasks can sometimes be a nightmare. So you want to have the actual information of how long it's truly going to take you in theory and also in practice on the ground. Now, on the topic of Chile, this is another great example of why you need to work with a professional within the birth tourism space. So as of somewhat recently in Chile, there's been a new law that has been passed in recent years where if you are on a short-term stay visa or a tourist visa in Chile and you have birth, you will not be entitled for the birth tourism aspect of your child gaining citizenship in Chile and therefore you obtaining your residence in Chile. If you are on one of these two visas in the country in Chile, you are not a permanent resident, you are not living there, then your child will not be eligible for the citizenship. So this is something serious to consider if you are going to Chile and giving birth, or any of these other countries where laws are constantly changing, which is always happening here in Latin America. You want to have the most up-to-date information, on the ground information, because unfortunately in this space and with tax law and residency law in general, things can always change, and a simple Google search is not going to be enough to suffice. If you have given birth, spent the money, had the plane ticket to the country, and spent all of the money on giving birth in a new country, only to find out that in practice on the ground, the citizenship will not be available to your child. I don't want this to happen to you, as I have heard of it happening to other women in the past. So if you are interested in learning more, you are interested in one or various different countries for birth tourism, feel free to reach out to me below. Myself and my team would be more than happy to guide you through this process in each individual country so that you can make an informed decision and you can work your way towards citizenship for your child and potential citizenship for you and your partner in the near future. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. New content is coming out weekly on the channel. Thank you for joining me here, and I'll see you in the next video.